Kitchen, kitchen, come. You right. Later. Albert,
Ah,
I think.
thank you.
Kitchen, you right
So-
one step. Okay.
The first thing
ไม่ทัน
when
เล
the
ยอะ
unit powers
เข้ามา
up,
เข้ามา
มันไม่เห็นหน้าจอเลย
เป็นไรค่อยๆ
okay,
โอเค
when we first power up, it's going to come up with the YSI screen. And then it should go to the information screens. You can either have it with this information screen where it scrolls through the different settings every few seconds, or we can go into the menu and change it so that it displays everything at once. I'm going to recommend we do this, and I will show you the way we go to, you push the menu button here, you choose System,
Yes. Menu system. Okay.
then we're going to go to Display, and then we're going to select under Display Format, instead of 1 by 1, 2 by 3.
Okay.
When I'm done with that, I can press back 2 times to get back to the menu, and then exit. And now it will display all of the settings here. Now we need to enable salinity. So I will go to menu. Then I'm going to go to sensor setup.
Menu. Sensor setup.
I'm going to press the enter key. I'm going to go to the salinity option. I'm going to press the enter key. I'm going to press enable.
Okay.
Now the salinity is enabled.
Okay.
Now, very important for these things are going to be temperature and altitude. Are we at sea level or plus or minus sea level?
This is how high from the sea level. This
I-
case.
Within 30 meters.
Not about one and two
Meters.
Meters, yes.
Perfect. So what we're going to do is we will set up all of the sensors here. The first one for the DO, I am going to change the membrane type. It defaults to a blue membrane, which is a membrane that is made out of a polyethylene. We don't use these very often because they foul. So you have gray membranes which are made from Teflon and they last longer. So I'm setting that to that. The sea level elevation is 0 to 100 feet because this is in English, not in metric. So from 0 to 34 meters. So this is okay, I don't need to change anything. So now the sensors are configured to all display. So when we put the cable and the probes on, we will have pH, ORP, temperature, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, and salinity. Okay? So the next thing is setting up what the levels to turn on and turn off. Okay? So we will go to the system menu and press enter, and we are going to set the time and date. So it's the format here that you use is day, month, year.
Day, month, year.
So I'm going to change it from the US default to be the settings here. Now I can do day, month, year 2-digit, or I can do day, month, year 4-digit.
You want like this, Mr. Someone, or you want
Yeah,
maybe
one,
emblem?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
2-digit, 4-digit year.
2-digit or 4-digit for the year?
No problem.
I think
4-digit.
4-digit year is better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Four digit.
So day,
Day,
month,
Okay,
and year.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, all of these settings should remain in place unless the battery dies or you factory reset. So once we do this, you should not normally need to do this again,
Okay.
okay? So now this is set up. Now we need to set 24-hour format or 12-hour format.
12 hour AM, PM, or 24 hour, like 13, 14, 15. Which format?
Normally 24-hour,
Yes.
24 hours
24 hour?
Yes.
So I'm going to take it from 12-hour
to 24.
to
Yeah.
24-hour and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
press enter.
Okay.
Now we need to set the date and time. Okay, I'm sorry, I started to go before I told you what I was doing. So I go to set date, I press enter, I look, the year is good, the month is good, the day we change, so I press enter on day, and then I use the arrows, and I pick the day, and then I press enter, and then I press save, and now it is correct, so I go back, and now we must change the time, so I press enter, and the hour, it thinks is 23, but in reality, the hour is 11. So I will change this to 11 and save. And the minutes are correct. So we go back and the date and time is now set on the unit for data logging and control. So now we need to set the salinity levels to turn on and off. Okay, so I'm going to go to menu.
Yes.
I'm going to go to sensor setup, so I'll go down and press enter. Then I'm going to find the salinity
Yes.
and press enter.
Yes.
This is enabled. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. We will have to set the set points here. So I think what we need to do is find out what the exact levels we turn on and turn off at. Because what we will be doing is we will set a low range, a high range, and a set point. Then, if it gets beyond those, we can set alarm points. An alarm point can be used to trigger a second device to notify someone that it has gone outside of range. So we can, if we connect the unit to the internet, we can also have it send email messages or text messages to notify people if there is a problem.
Okay. But I want to send to messenger to both telephone can or not?
Telephone can.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So the text messages can be sent to the phone.
But
Right.
over send the over can.
Yes.
Yes. What we would do to do this is we will have to have an email server set up that it can access. And then it will send an email to the text messaging service to the phone number. Typically, for example, I don't know what it is in Thailand, but in the US and Europe, we can send an email to a phone number at a service, and it then makes that into an SMS message that comes on the phone. So what we can do is we go to the system menu, and we look for email.
Yes.
Sorry, we need to first set up the network, my apologies, and the data logging. So we do that first. So the data logging is under menu, system, data logging. So I see data logging, I press enter. It says data logging enabled. It samples every 1 hour. event logging enabled. And then the last option is if we, for one reason or another, wanted to clear all the data logs. This would manually clear them. So it is enabled for 1 hour. The date, time, display, download, turn alarm. I need to find my network. Which will be under communications. So under menu, system, communications. So here I can set the Ethernet address. This is also part of an RS-485 network controller. It can be a master or slave of multiple units. So if I were doing that, I would set that here. It can also work with a serial port, RS-232. So if I wanted to run RS-232, I would set the baud rate and the settings here for interfacing. The physical interface, this is the RS-485, right here where my finger is. And then this would be the connection for the RS-232. And then, of course, here is for the internet and Ethernet. Okay? Now, if you want battery backup in the event of power failure, you can run 12 volt DC here. And then if you lose the AC power, it would stay running on the DC power. Okay?
Okay.
So, communications under here, we have, if we want to run the 485, you have to determine if this would be a master or a slave, and whether it's going to have terminating power or not. If I'm going too fast, please tell me if anything is not clear. Now, send test email message. We can choose how we send it. The option is through the Ethernet. So that's why we would need to have internet access to a PC and to the internet through the Ethernet so that we can send the messages to the telephones. Okay? So then, the next item, email time delay. If there's a situation that's going to set an alarm, do we want it to send the message right away? Or do we want to wait to see if the situation calms down? And then it can do a delay. So right now, it says delay 15 minutes. Normally, people don't like this. Normally, they want to know right away if there's a problem. Is this what you want?
Yes, we want to know.
Okay. So then I would press enter, and I would say hold time 0. So 0 and save. Okay? That's saying 1. All right, so I set 1 and save. Now I'm going to take the delay time from minutes, and I'm going to make it seconds. So now, if there's a problem, it will delay 1 second instead of 1 hour or 15 minutes. So now, that is set up. The rest we would do through a PC. Now I did bring my PC, and I do have my cable, so if I need to, I can load the software and show you how to do it if you don't have a PC today. So, the next items, it has auxiliary inputs right here. We have 2 inputs and a common. The inputs can be 420 milliamp loop. It can be 0 to 1 volt or 0 to 5 volt on off. So, those are 2 additional inputs. If you needed more additional inputs, there is another box that goes similar that can do up to 8 I/O inputs, input and output 420 milliamp. We need to put a ground from this into your grounding system. That is important. It won't work properly without a good ground. So we're going to need to take a ground here and feed it into your system. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what each function under the menu does. The one that you'll probably use the most is adjust contrast. This is a product that has been around for a long time. They started with LCD screens, and because this product has been in production for 14 years, they haven't updated to the latest technology. So LCD, when it gets hot or cold, obviously the temperature change influences how you can see it. So you can press adjust contrast, which is always the first choice if there's a power outage. You can know that you go down X number in case you can't see the screen clearly, because what can happen is if the contrast is off, it can look like this. If it's too hot, it can be very difficult to read. Or if it's too cold, it would be to the other extreme. So this is something that you will probably have to adjust depending on the temperature. So you see how I hold the button down. So we find whatever is an easy to read, we set it, we press the enter key. So this is the one item that if somebody is looking at it, they'll probably use. Buzzer enabled. If there is an alarm, this unit will make noise. It's not loud, but it will let you know that there's a problem. Someone walking by will hear it. So we can turn that on or off. Backlight timing enabled. It's an LCD screen, so we do want it backlit because without it, it's very difficult to read. So we normally leave that on, and you can control how long it stays lit after you use a keypad. I believe it's probably set for 30 seconds. It is. Is that enough time, or do you want to make it longer or shorter?
I think it is okay. 30 seconds is okay.
Is okay? Then we will go back. Communications is where we were just a few minutes ago. Communications is where we set up the Ethernet, where we set up the RS-485, and where we set up the RS-232 serial port. So that is what the communications menu item is. The next item is going to be configure auxiliary. This is for the auxiliary inputs located here. And that is what would allow us to set up external devices, additional sensors, and other things that we may want to data log and control from. So we can press that, and you can see that both are currently disabled. If we wanted to use one of them, we would press this. We would first give the probe a name. For example, maybe PAR to measure sunlight, or we could measure TDS, total dissolved solids, or TSS, total suspended solids. Whatever we wish to measure, we could put in the probe name, and then we would select the input type, 4 to 20 milliamp, or we could also do 0 to 1 volt or 0 to 5 volt digital. Now, if you choose to do a low voltage input, don't use 0 to 1 or 0 to 5 if you're trying to get a spectrum reading. That's only for on and off. What you would want to do is, if you were trying to do a low voltage reading, is, you know, Ohm's law, where you put a resistor across, and that would give you current. So we would put current in with a resistor so that we could convert voltage to the 420 milliamp inputs. Does that make sense? So we aren't with any extra probes, so I'm going to go back, and then you would put in the format and the scale of that sensor that you added. And you can do that with 2 sensors additional to what's already on there. Any questions so far?
No question.
Okay. So next, we go down to configure e-auxiliary. This we will not be using at this point. There's another box like one of these called an IOEM 8, which is 8 circuits of input or output. There's also what they call an IOEM 4, which is 4 circuits of input or output. And then there's an REM 4, which is 4 relay outputs, and an REM 8, which is 8 relay outputs. You should not need anything for something so simple here, but later on, if you wanted to add other water quality monitoring aspects and be able to control and data log, then this would be where we would set them up. The data logging, we've already set up for 1 per hour, correct? So then we go to date and time. We've already set that for the current date and time. So then we have display settings, which we've set up so that now you can see all the parameters. And now we get to downloader. Downloader is used when there is a firmware update. And to do that, you would take a laptop computer or a connected PC, you would interface it through a USB to serial, typically interface, and plug in to this unit. Now, in the items that you've received should be yes, this is an RJ45 to DB9 connector that is pre-wired as a null modem. So you would take the blue cable that came with it, the RJ45 cable, you would plug that into the serial input. You would take the other end and plug it into here, and then connect this into your serial port. And it could be a USB to serial or a serial port on a computer. And then you would use the downloader, and you would press that, and when you do, it goes into a mode that it's ready to receive the data from the Aqua Manager software, which is that CD. So I would recommend that if and when it's time to do a firmware update, you call me or email me, and I assist you over the phone on it the first time. Now, this unit is already up to date with the firmware that's current, so you don't have to do an update. But if a new version of Aqua Manager were to come out, frequently there's a firmware update that accompanies it. Any questions so far?
No questions.
Okay. So then, I need to change my contrast because it's already changing temperature. So I'm going to go and adjust my contrast to make it easier to read. Okay. So we were at, thank you. I think I'll just do this for right now, just to keep it so I don't have to hold it. Thank you very much. So, the next one is general alarm. And this is what's going to set the parameters for what triggers the buzzer and what would cause it to send the email message to the cell phones and SMS messages. And so we have alarm hold off time, 15 seconds. We're going to change this, and we're going to say alarm hold off time 1 and save. Now it says alarm hold time 1 second. The next, relay disabled. If you want to put a siren or a light or a beacon, we can set one of the relays to be controlled by the alarm function so that if somebody is around, they can be notified that there is something that is out of range. So we would set the relay here. Is that something you would be interested in doing?
You want to put some light or siren?
I think I try silent better. I have but sensor form to check salinity over send to PLC silent
Okay.
and delay about 1 hour or everything start again.
Okay. Well, what we can do is set 2 relays,
Yes.
and then it has an external if you ever want it.
Yes.
So we can make relay 1 to go to the PLC,
Yes.
and we can make relay 4 to go to an external siren or light. So what I will do, so I'm going to press enter, and where it says relay disabled, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to first select the general alarm, and I'm going to enable. And then it says instrument. Well, we don't have any, this is not part of a network of these. We could have 256 per network, but we don't. So I'm not going to change that because we're not sending it to any external units. And then I'm going to select the relay number that I want to control this. So my options are 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to choose 4. Once that's done, I'm just going to go back, and there we are. So the next option is name devices and sensors. If you wanted to change the name of the unit or of any of the probes as they appear, then this would be where we would go ahead and change the names. And here's what each one is, and then here's what you can select one, and then you could change the name using this. But for what we're doing, I don't think it's necessary unless you feel otherwise. Is it okay?
I think it's okay.
Okay. But this is where you could change them if you wanted to. So I'm going to go back. And then next is password. This has the ability to set a password where nothing can be done without the password. The problem with that is most people who set the password forget what the password is very quickly. Or they'll write it down and lose it. I leave it to you to decide, but this is where you would put in your password.
Okay.
I personally don't advocate putting a password in unless unless there's going to be easy access to the outside. But it looks like you're going to have a door that locks and nobody's going to be coming in and out and messing with it, and it's not, I would not worry about it. But if you choose to set a password, I can do it. Do you wish a password?
You want passport? I no
Maybe
need. Next step.
I finish, I can. It's
Always
okay.
had it. So then, power fail. Do you want to be notified if there is a power failure? So we can go to power fail, and power failure system can be enabled or disabled. We can also power fail monitor the AC supply, and if the battery level, if you were using a battery, you can set it where if the battery goes low, that it would send an alarm. And then you can have low battery trigger, okay, which would be what voltage do you want the battery to take over. So you can have AC power of 85 to 264 volts. If your nominal power is what, 230, 220?
24. What?
Your AC supply.
AC, right. 24, 20 and 12 volt, no problem.
This,
Power 230 volt.
230.
Yes.
Okay, so what you may choose is, for example, that if the AC power were to fall below 180, then it could switch to battery backup.
Oh, yes.
So if you do that, you need a 12 volt power source, like a battery, that you would wire in where I showed you. And then we would set this up with the low battery alarm and the cutover where if the voltage drops, it switches to the battery. Does this make sense?
ไอ้นี่เวลาเราต่อนี่เราต่อไฟมาจากผ่านตู้นี่หรือเปล่าไอ้ฝานหม้อแปลงนะ
ไอ้
ต้อง
หม้อ
ผ่าน
แปลง
นะไม่ไฟนี่ต้องเอามาจากหม้อแปลงนะ
มาจากหม้อแปลงดิ
เดียวมันจะมีอันตรายให้มีเสือด้วยนะมีเสือป้องกัน
ใน
ด้วยนะ
ตู้มีอยู่แล้วนี่
ไม่แต่เอาไฟมาจากนู่นนะไฟมาจากนี่
อืม
ไม่ใช่เอาแบตมาจากนี่นะ
อือฮึ
เพราะมันจะเวลาเสือลงมันจะฟ้ามันจะลง
คือต้องเอาจากนี่
พยายามเอาจากไอ้นี่ไม่ใช่เนี่ยไอ้หลังหม้อแปลงเราเนี่ยจากฟิวตัวเนี้ย
อ๋อ
ไอ้ฟิวตัวเนี้ยเห็นไหม
So
Okay.
you want to set up?
You want to set up low voltage battery backup?
But you need the battery for.
Yeah.
Right. If we do, we simply put
โอเค
negative, positive into here.
yes
Very important, don't reverse the polarity,
Okay.
please. It's, would be very bad.
เอาไฟ12โวลต์เข้ามาที่นี่ด้วย
But once you have a low voltage power supply for battery backup, then we would simply come in here and we would set up power fill system enable, and then AC enable. Battery monitor would be enabled. And then what is the voltage of the battery when it's low? So that it tells you if the battery if backup is low. So it's saying 15 volts because normal 12 volt battery is a little higher than, but I would say lower. But that will send a message then if the battery backup voltage drops. So maybe if it gets to 11 or 12 volts, it sends a message that there's a problem. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and disable this for now because there's no battery hooked up. And if we leave it enabled, all it's going to do is sound alarm, sound siren, send message, drive you crazy.
Okay.
So it's disabled for now. If you hook up 12 volt, just enable and set the voltage. Any questions?
No question.
Okay. The next function is going to be the serial number. This is important for the software. This is how we pull the data into the software. And so this unit has an ESN or electronic serial number of 53. 53 designates this model of unit. The original models were 52 for 5200. The 53 is for the 5200A. It's one digit up for the A model, which is a second revision. Then the next is 16. This is the year that the manufacturer actually made it. So this was made in December of 2016. And then 00483. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. Yes, 483. So this was the 483rd model that YSI made in 2016. So that's how the serial number works.
So I have a question. When in future while communicating with you, do we have to mention the...
You will have to record that number, yes. So you may want to write it down,
Yes.
which is 53-1600483. Because when we put the software in on the computer, it has to have this and the IP address.
Okay.
And we'll get to setting the network settings up in just a few moments, okay? So then, service. Service is a mode that we can go into when there are problems. So we go into service, reset clean probes timer, reset to factory, and output test. Okay? So, this is where the probe is supposed to be cleaned on a preset schedule to make sure that it doesn't foul. So this is where every time the probe is cleaned, you would go into the service mode and you would push enter. First you would set how many days between probe cleaning and then how many days duration between each one. So for example, I would suggest typically 2 weeks is a good number for probe cleaning. So you could go here and set the duration to 14 days or 2 weeks. Now, this then tells you clean probes enabled, 14 days left. So each day it would drop by 1 day. Tomorrow it will say 13 days, the next day 12 days. And that's going to send you a reminder on the software that the probes need to be cleaned. When you've cleaned the probes, you would go to reset, you would push it, and it says reset clean probes. Are you sure? You would say yes, and it resets the timer so that it starts the countdown again. Any questions?
How long?
2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
That's what I recommend, but you can say,
Cleaning.
Yes, can clean.
to clean the probe, all you're going to do is remove the cover,
Yes.
take fresh clean water, remove any accumulated biomass and debris, make sure that there's no algae, diatoms, things like this on the probe.
But not have
Dead bugs.
not have water problem or not.
I'm sorry?
The probe
It can be fully submersed.
submerged. Yes.
Yes.
But not have water entry. They not have no problem or not?
If the
Yes,
if
up
the
low.
probe is not in the
Our water level up.
Down.
Not have down. Next time.
Okay.
Yes.
during the dry
All of the probes are okay, dry, except the PHORP probe. This one probe has to stay wet. This goes in there. If you don't have it wet, what will happen is the glass bulb inside there would break and crack. So you see how it's shipped wet in electrolyte? If in the dry season, we can remove this probe and put a cap in its position, and then it's okay. But then you would not have readings of pH and ORP.
Okay. So while storing by storing this thing, do we need to submerge it in the water or something like that?
Okay. Yeah, this probe always has to be wet, either in the water, or if not in the water, it needs to be stored in electrolyte. So, this probe comes with a little ball and cap. What I would recommend is that in the dry season, we take and save this, fill it with electrolyte, and put it on just like that. Take the probe out of the cable and store it in the dry season. In the wet season, take this off, put it back into the cable, put it in, and you're good.
Okay.
Does this make sense now?
Yes.
Any questions?
No question.
Please don't.
Everything key sensor same.
Which?
Key sensor have or not?
The probe.
The probe key probe.
There are 3 probes: PHORP, temperature conductivity, and dissolved oxygen.
Yeah.
All the probes can be dry except this one. This is the only probe that has to stay wet. And temperature conductivity, DO, no problem, they can be dry.
Okay.
So, if pH is not a major concern, we can put a plug in the cable and you never have to worry about it. And we can disable it right here. It's up to you. So, the next part of that menu, reset to factory. Be very careful. Reset all, reset system, reset sensor, or reset timers. If you do reset all, you will lose your network settings, your communication settings, your membrane settings, everything. You'll have to redo everything we've just done on the video.
Okay.
If you have a problem with a sensor, I would suggest you call either YSI or myself. I would say, hello, okay, please go to menu system, to service, to reset to factory, reset sensor, and then I would tell you to reset a specific sensor to see if this solves the problem.
Okay.
Very rare, not normally going to be used. Then, reset system. Should not need this. If I have to do this with you, something is wrong. Something is off. Then, next, we have service hold disabled. If you are running high quality analytics, then you may be concerned about the data when you clean the probe or do maintenance. This is a function that can be enabled, that for example, when it's time to calibrate the probes or do some work, or do work on the system, you could push a service hold button and it will stop taking data for whatever your preset interval is. Is this something you need to worry about or not really?
We do not have to worry about this.
Okay. If you did later on, all you would do is you would go in, you would enable it, And then you would set how long you wanted it to be active at a time. Like this is set for 5 minutes, you can make it 10 hours, 1 minute, whatever you want. And what would happen is that when you go to the menu, I'll show you here in just a second, on your first menu button, you see service hold right here. So before you would do anything, you would press service hold. It's going to say it's not enabled because we don't have it enabled right now. But if it was enabled, it would start counting down and then you could do work and it would not data log anything during that time. Is this clear?
Okay, yes,
Any question?
no question.
Okay. So let's go back.
So, one question here. While cleaning the probe, do we need to disable this service? Like,
It is up to you. I don't think that it would be required for what you're doing unless you are calibrating the conductivity, in which case if the pumps were running and you wanted to calibrate the conductivity, what you would not want to happen is you put it into the conductivity solution and then it shuts off all the pumps. Or you're calibrating it and there's salt water and you rinse it with water and it turns on the pumps. Does this make sense?
Yes.
You know, the more we've just said this, I think maybe we turn it on for like 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Because if you're calibrating or cleaning the probes, you don't want the pumps turning on and off randomly, right?
Yes.
So that's where we would use it. Does that make sense now?
Yes.
So I'm going to go back to menu, system, service hold. I'm going to enable it, and I'm going to set it 30 minutes should be more than enough.
Yeah, 30 minutes would be more than enough. Yes.
So I go to the 3, and I'm going to go to the 0, 30, up, I went one too far, up, backspace, and I'm going to press save, and now it says 30 minutes. Okay? So the next version displays the software version on the unit, and this version, the display board, which is the front module, is version 2. The control board is version 2, and it says the software was compiled May 20th of 2015. You normally would not need to worry about this. This is used only for diagnostics if you're on the phone with a technician. Then it tells you that the unit temperature is 47.3 inside, so it's quite toasty inside.
Okay.
And the power, it's at 12.07 volts. There's no battery hooked up and what the model number is. And that completes the system menu. Ready for the next?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to go back to the menu screen. We have 4 key items on the main menu. Calibration, system, sensor setup, and timers. Now, calibration is going to be what you use most frequently. We'll do this after we build up the probe, and then we can put it in and we will test it here, and I'll show you how to calibrate and build the probe. So we'll do that in a few minutes. System we just walked through. Sensor setup is where we set up our various sensors, both the units that are on this one and then remote sensors. And so as I go through, I have conductivity, dissolved oxygen, ORP, which is oxidation reduction potential, pH, temperature, and salinity. It's from here that I can enable or disable a probe, as well as set the high points, the low points, the set points, and the alarm high and alarm low points. So, what I think would be very useful is if we could find out what the approximate levels that they want to control the salt water. What season do you have the salt water most present?
During dry season, salt water.
And when is dry season?
April.
No, how many months from April, March, April?
Yes, March, April, and May.
May.
Okay, so now,
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
It's
about.
dry season now.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Maybe important to have a float switch too, so the pumps don't run dry, right?
What's about March, April, and May?
Mhm.
Crazy solved already. But after, no problem.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll have to set the set points in.
Yes.
And you're gonna have to find out what's acceptable levels, and then we have to look up on the chart what those levels are and put it in.
You have the label for salinity. How much you want?
Okay. 0 to
70
70 P
PPT.
PTT.
0 to 17 is acceptable,
70. Yes, I
or
think 70.
that's very high. The ocean is 32.
That's very high. You can check.
Hi.
Yes.
Yes, very, very high. The ocean is 32 PPT. So we would want to be considerably less than that, or there's no point to this.
Kitchen, then said can check about high, okay, 7, but normally how many use?
Maybe this is for
Them said
the measurement of
the measurement, yes,
of the unit.
yes.
Not. It is written in Thai language.
Oh,
It is 0 to 70 PPT.
Yes,
for
yes.
salinity.
Can check,
Maybe.
but standard how many I don't know. But
So-
can use to 50, no problem. I can set,
normal drinking water would be 0 to 4 or 5.
drinking water is 0 to 4 or 5.
but channel how many? Channel how many I don't know.
I don't know. But if you're above 6 or 7, problem. Big problem.
Okay.
So we need to check this.
Yeah.
So can but comment. But
Okay.
check but you I think standard how many you can set standard and but over.
I can
30.
walk you through the setup when it is time.
Yes.
You send me an email, and we'll arrange a time, and
Yeah.
I can be on the phone with you, and we can walk through the setup.
Okay.
Is this acceptable?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So then, I think that's all that's going to be critical. I think what would make the most sense is, the last piece is this connector right here has to be sealed. So whatever wires we're going to run in and out, the Ethernet, the communication wires to the PLC, we need to run them, because the longer this is open and exposed, then you will have corrosion and the board will damage over time. And then the manufacturer YSI would not warranty it if they see corrosion inside the unit, because that means that you left this open. So I would recommend that today we close it until you're ready to run your wires through.
Okay.
Is this okay?
Yes.
Okay. We will do it today.
Okay. So,
Wiring and close.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And kitchen and yeah, sure, no problem.
okay.
No, can.
So what I think would make sense is I go through the various parts of the probes and the cables.
Yes.
And do we have a small table or anything we can do it on?
Table. We have the table to
You can long, no problem. I finish, I can.
to set up. We have a small table to keep and set up everything.
But can, no problem.
I know,
But in the box.
no, not about the fitting.
It's just so we don't get dirt and things into the fittings.
We need one table to.
We can do it, here, right here.
Yes.
I'm sorry. This will work.